Hey guys, Chris here, the RC Geek. Welcome back. This is my flight review video for the Freewing F-14 Tomcat. You can find my assembly review video here. In this video we're going to talk about final setup as well as how the airplane flies and talk about CG, control throws, all of that. In a word, this airplane flies awesome. You can't beat the shape of the F-14, especially with the wings swept. It just conjures up all kinds of Top Gun quotes. You can't get away from them. No, my ego doesn't write checks. I've got an ATM card. The F-14 as a configuration is very user-friendly and lends itself really well to an RC model. With the wings extended, flies great, real predictable. Wings swept, there are a few things that you do want to be aware of, but it's again very straightforward and honest flying airplane in that configuration. As noted in my assembly review, I'm using the 5800 milliamp hour packs, and with those I'm able to get a good solid 5 minutes if I really want to push it, and that's of really hard flying too. So it's a lot of fun and I'm really happy with the flight time. I had to do some modifications to get them to fit into the fuselage, which I did cover in my assembly review. It's really simple, just required removing some material in the battery area so that the batteries could be pushed all the way back up against the carry-through spar. With those pushed all the way back, we're able to get the CG without any issues, and it flies great. To know before flying the airplane is the ESC calibration. You gotta do that. It makes a notable difference in performance. Also, I suggest sealing up any open gaps in the exhaust ducting. What I did is I simply pulled the fan hatch out, put some packing tape over the open areas around the aileron servo, and then used hot glue to seal up around the servo wires that enter into that center fuselage. So first of all, the CG. The CG, as noted in the instructions, is perfect. 87 millimeters as measured from the leading edge of that overwing fairing hatch. And they also give you a dimension from the top of the fuselage to the leading edge of the tail, which is kind of your trim elevator deflection. It's 31 millimeters measured from the top of the fuselage. That is a great starting point. In fact, I don't remember having to do any kind of elevator trim on the maiden or subsequent flights. Now, in terms of the control setup, this is where things get interesting. I can tell you that the airplane in the stock configuration flies great with the wings extended. And what that means is that it's set up with outboard ailerons, inboard flaps, and then you've got tailerons at the back acting for pitch and roll, and then you have the rudders, of course. All of the servos are routed into an electronics board, and that takes care of any of the automatic mixing between the ailerons and the tailerons. However, there is an issue in that the stock setup does not disengage the wing ailerons in the swept wing configuration. This is a problem, and I can tell you from experience the airplane does not fly well with the wings swept and those ailerons moving. You get a very non-linear response. Not what you want at all. So when you set up this airplane, set it up such that the wing ailerons are disengaged with the swept wing configuration. Now in my case, I've taken things a little bit further to make it a little bit more scale. The scale geek in me had to. We have ailerons out there, you've got flaps. I had to do a full span flap. And I was actually rewarded with a beautifully landing airplane. What I ended up doing is the two wing aileron servos, plug them directly into the receiver into two auxiliary channels and set them up more as like a turning spoiler as opposed to the traditional aileron that they have you set up. The ailerons are only moving trailing edge up, and it's simply there to augment the roll a bit more, to give a little bit more response. Now regarding the control deflections, what I've converged on, this is based on how I've personally set up this particular airplane. For the roll control, we've got the tailerons, 1 1/4 inch max deflection, with the wing ailerons are mixed with about 3/16 inch trailing edge up only. Pitch, we've got the elevator acting 1 1/4 inch. And then for the full span flaps, the partial flap is about 5/8 of an inch. Full flap is about 2 inches. And I have about a 1/2 inch up elevator mix in there to counteract the full span flap. You get a very significant pitching moment. So you have to mix that out. with, you know, some elevator mixing. It's an up elevator mix. Now with the wings swept, the wing ailerons are completely disabled and I'm flying tailerons only. The tailerons acting in roll, only about a ½ an inch of maximum deflection in the roll, and then the pitch deflection, that remains the same at about 1 1/4 inch. Now regarding the programming, I'm using the Airtronics SD10G radio system. I've got a 10-channel receiver in there, and to do what I've done specifically, you need at least 9 channels. Otherwise you'll need 8 channels, and then you'll have to decide what function you want your ailerons to be, whether you want them to be ailerons or you want them to be flaps. Now the first things first, to set this up, I had to bypass the 2 aileron servos and plug them directly into the receiver, into 2 auxiliary channels. Once I had done that, I set up both of the ailerons to match the flap. So I programmed the flap function first on the ailerons. From there, I set up a channel mix on each of the ailerons that's mixed to the aileron channels, and I only programmed the mix such that I got trailing edge up. The channel mixes were then assigned to the switch that activates my swing wings, such that the channel mix is active with the wings extended and then disabled with the wings swept. So that way the ailerons are only moving when the wings are extended. One thing to note is that since we're setting it up through a channel mix, those outboard ailerons won't actually respond to your aileron dual rate switch. So keep that in mind. I have mine set up such that I fly high rate ailerons with the wings extended, or high rate taileron I should say, and then low rate taileron with the wings swept. The other thing that I did was to assign my aileron dual rates to, of course, my typical aileron dual rate switch, but also to my swing wing switch, so that when the wings are swept, it automatically changes to the low rate taileron, and then when the wings are extended, it's at high rate taileron. This is important because if you don't reduce your rates with the wing swept, that airplane is going to be on its back before you even know it. It's extremely touchy. Since the dual rates are tied to a switch, but the wings transition over about a 2-second period or so, you end up with an immediate change in the rates while the wings are catching up. So the transitions can get a little interesting, but if you're prepared for it, it's really not a big deal. Now, in terms of how this airplane flies, it flies awesome. I love how it flies. With the wings extended, the airplane flies almost like a trainer. It's very user-friendly. It'll let you know when it's getting too slow. The wings will actually start to rock, and that's your cue to increase the speed, push the nose down. The airplane will handle any maneuvering that you toss towards it. The rudders are pretty effective. They can be a little snappy, so keep that in mind. Now, with the wings swept, when you've set it up properly, it's just as easy to fly as it is with the wings extended. You know, this configuration is so iconic and so mean looking that, you know, you want to just fly with the wings swept the whole time. But, you know, explore the maneuvers, have some fun with it, because F-14s just fly great. So with all of that said, let's take a look at how this airplane flies, and then we'll wrap it all up. If you want to see the full uncut video, you can see that here. Otherwise, here's the abbreviated version. After that, we'll close this up.
I took it all the way down to the end. Dude, I aimed. You know what I aimed for? I aimed for that air. don't like it with 4 blades.
So there we go. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. One thing to remember, you know, I know that it's tempting, but the internet really doesn't need another RC jet video with the Top Gun anthem playing underneath it or Danger Zone. I know it kills me. If you're up for a challenge, how about Take My Breath Away or Heaven in Your Eyes? I mean, those are from the Top Gun soundtrack after all, but let's try and make this a Danger Zone free zone, shall we? We've got a full article on what we've done here on my blog, thercgeek.com. It's got a little bit more detail in it than what we've covered here. I've got more videos coming, so be sure to subscribe to get those when they're posted. I've got regular RC stuff that I'm adding every week. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you at the field. You're dangerous.